Genesis chapter 28, starting in verse 10. That's where we're going to start. At various times in the Old Testament, God's people would set up a single altar of remembrance at a place where God did an especially powerful miracle. Okay? And that's what we're going to focus in on, a little bit of that today. And some things that I started as God was dealing with me in this, as He was giving me this sermon, was the altar of remembrances that I have had in my life. And I'm going to share a few of those with you this morning. And there are things in the Old Testament that we see that what they would do is they were setting things up so that they could look back on, and no matter what they was facing, they could look back on that altar and see that's where God provided for them. I think sometimes we become so clouded with everything that happens because life is fast. Would you agree with me? Listen, I'm going to turn 50 this year. Lord help me. 50 this year. Life goes fast. I preached to the youth group on Wednesday, and we talked about. I brought a rope in, right, like 100-foot rope. So we like drug this rope all through the building. We drug it out. Here we go. It's wrapped around like the building inside there. And then I took a little bitty piece of tape, a little bright tape, and I wrapped at the very end of that. And I said, "This is your life. The rest of that's eternity." And we focus so much on the little part, right? We don't focus in on the eternal part. That's a different sermon. Should have been there Wednesday to hear that one. That was for free there. But where I'm going at is I start to think about we all, as life is just quickly passing by, fast. It feels like, how many of you have ever said there's not enough hours in the day? That's the epitome of my life right now, I feel like. It's not enough hours in the day to get everything done. And the enemy comes, right? I don't know about you, but have you felt like you've just been attacked over and over and over again? It just feels like it feels like when the enemy comes, it's not just like I'm just going to kind of gouge on you. To me, it's like wave after wave, right? You get done and you're almost drowning, and you come up, gasp for air, and then here it comes again. In those moments, those times, that's where I have to start to look back on the altars of remembrance. To know if God provided for me there, He'll provide for me here. If He did it there, He'll do it in this circumstance. Okay? These altars of remembrance were constructed of simple local stones. Okay? But they would serve to remind future generations, listen, because your altars of remembrance are not just for you. But that people would go and see those altars, or they would see those stones, and they would go, you know what happened here? And would give them the encouragement for whatever they was facing, to look at that and say, God provided for them. And if He did it for them, He's no respecter of people or persons, and He would do it for me. Okay, Genesis chapter 28. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on all earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. Where? Wherever you go. And I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on it, on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. So he takes this thing, he takes this rock, he has this vision, he has this amazing vision, right? And God says, listen, that promise is still for us today, right? The promise is still for us. I don't know about you, but God has performed in my life miracles that I didn't deserve. Things in my life that I was not set up. Listen, I'm going to tell you some things in my life here in just a minute. I'm going to share with you a few things where there were times in my life that I was nowhere near where I should have been with God. Nowhere where I could have called him a friend. Nowhere where I could have called him a father. Nowhere where I could have called on him for anything, honestly. Yet he proved himself over and over again to me. And those are things that I set up altars for so that I could look back on and say, God, if you did it for me when I was in that shape, when I was in that place, and if you did it for me there, I know you're going to do it for me here. Whoop, I lost my notes. There we go. In Genesis 33:20, God rescues Jacob from Esau. He again builds an altar. Exodus 24:4. Moses then wrote down everything the Lord had said. He got up early the next morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Remembrance. I'm setting things up. Because here's the thing. If we don't have those altars of remembrance, as fast as life goes, come on, it just flies by. I told the young people the other day, I said, I remember being like Tony's one of my very best friends, and we went to school together. I've known him my whole life. And we went to school, and so played sports together, hung out. He's been in my house, I've been in his house, and I mean, here we're getting a little older. Looking better in age, by the way. Time flies by. And here's the thing, the enemy comes at us, and he comes at us, and he comes at us. And listen, listen, church, can I tell you something? The devil hates you. There's not even an ounce in him that likes anything about you. He hates you. He hates your life. He hates your family. He hates everything about you. And the Bible is very clear when it says he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That's exactly what he's after. That is exactly what he's after for you. So if I don't build up my altars of remembrance, when the enemy does come, and I assure you, listen, I'm not trying to be some doomsday and make you feel rough this morning, okay? I'm not doing that. But I promise you, you're going to go through some things. You're going to go through some tough things. You're going to go through some things that you wish that you'd never had to go through. That's reality. That's not doomsday. That's just how it is. It's life. It's how it goes. And the enemy comes to steal. But if I've built up those altars of remembrance and I can look back on those stones and I can look back in that place and I can say, God, you did it. You did it here. And listen, not only that, maybe he didn't do that in a certain circumstance, but then I can look on your life and I can see a stone of remembrance for you and go, wow, look at what God did. Look at what God did. Look at what God did. Look at what God did for them. And if he did, he's no respecter, right? So if he did it for you, he'll do it for me. Joshua chapter 4. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe, and said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. Listen, in the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? Tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. So the Israelites did as Joshua commanded them. They took 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites as the Lord had told Joshua, and they carried them over with them to their camp where they put them down. Joshua set up the 12 stones that had been in the middle of the Jordan at the spot where the priest who carried the Ark of the Covenant had stood, and they are there to this day as a remembrance. So why should we build altars of remembrance? Why should we do that? Because the present can be blurry. Hindsight is what? 2020, right? And I don't know about you, but there has been times that I have not seen or felt God. That doesn't make me any less of a Christian. Come on, can we shed off the holiness for a second and just let's just jump into some real things here? Huh? There's been some moments I didn't feel God. In moments that I've had to go through that I wasn't like, well, glory to God. Isn't this fantastic that I'm going through this mess? Thank you, Jesus. I'm sorry. I mean, you're on a different holiness level than me, if you did. I'm not quite there yet. I'm getting there. I'm a work in progress. Remember, I'm young. I'm only 49. Sometimes we can't see or feel God in our present circumstance. And it is a huge boost to our faith to be able to see Him in our past circumstances. I don't feel Him, Jason. I don't see Him in this. Nope, but I seen Him there. I see what He did right here. That's what these signs were. Because listen, there were going to be generations that come that didn't have to go through that. But then they're going to have to face their own circumstances. They're going to have to face their own fight. There's going to be battles they have to fight. And listen, they need to be able to look back on what God did for us. Because the present can be confusing. How so? Well, let me tell you. How about that Satan was able to trick Adam and Eve? What do you mean? Well, In Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, he said this to Eve. He says, did God really say? Okay, now, let's go. Let's be theologians for a moment. Eve answered the serpent with an incorrect memory or understanding of what God really did tell her. Read it for yourself. Eve said that God said not even to touch the tree. Okay, that's not what God said. God never said that. He only said not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He didn't say don't touch it. You see how we can become very misconstrued sometimes? So building altars of remembrance for what God has done for us and taught us in the past will help us in our present to make wise choices and decisions. Because let me tell you something, the devil's, he's pretty good at what he's had a long time to perfect his craft. You're like, well, I study my Bible at least 2 hours a week. Got quiet. Come on. But I listen to this podcast, and they talk about Jesus. But I listen to praise and worship on my way to work. Remember who we're talking about here? This is Satan. This is the devil. You don't understand, Jason. I'm right there where I need. Okay, refresh my memory. I'm pretty sure that Adam and Eve was in a perfect place. God was walking and talking with them on the daily. Pretty sure that's what it says in Genesis. If you don't take my word for it, read the book. And he was able to trick them and confuse them with just a sleight of words. So you don't think that he can't come to us and maybe do the same thing and then get us going, maybe I just doubt that. Well, I don't know. Well, can God really do that? My wife's got a friend or coworker and she had some questions, and we've been kind of helping her, and even now, I mean, there's just things that she's just questioning over and over and over again, and we're trying to obviously steer her through the Word and in the right direction, right? But you can see where the devil just is manipulating and things. And just twisting just enough to get us off the. And even gets me at points where she'll my wife will ask me, what about this? And then I'll have to, okay, hang on. And then instead of just in a spur of a moment, just making some, bless God, no, I don't do that. I have to take a moment and think I have to focus back on my altars of remembrance. Why do we build altars of remembrance? Because it's a great way to tell others about Jesus. Some people don't care. Listen, they don't care what the Bible says about a topic or an issue. They just don't. They don't care about what God did in the Bible 2,000 years ago. They could care less. But some of those people do care about what you have experienced and about what God has done in that specific time for you, because it's real to them. It's tangible to them. We start talking about Old Testament and you go, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's awesome. And we could go over and we could see these things and we'd be like, man, that's amazing to be able to see those things. There are some people who would be like, I could care less, Jason. That's okay. Let me tell you about my daughter. That's real, right? Not that that's not real. I'm not saying that's not real. I'm just saying that's not my altar of remembrance. That's something I can look upon, but I have my own. I want to share them with you. Let me get through this part right here. While some won't listen if we ask them, can I tell you what the Bible says about suffering? It will often disarm people when we ask them, may I share with you what God has been teaching me lately as I have suffered? May I share with you a time in my life when God carried me through a terrible storm? In some ways, it's easy to argue with the Bible, but it isn't so easy to argue with or to refute another person's experience. They may not believe the food exists, but many are interested in hearing how God tastes to us. I don't want to hear all those stories, Jason, in the Bible. That stuff, that's 2,000 years ago. I don't need to hear all that stuff. Okay, you're right. So can I bare my soul this morning? Let me share a few of my stones. So I'm going to share a few with you. Not all, but I'm going to share a few that are relevant, very relevant to me. So here's a stone. What's that stone represent to me? That stone represents my healing. What'd you get healed from? So as a little boy, I had extremely, extremely bad allergies. And this may not be a big deal for you. You may be like, oh, whatever. It's a big deal to me. And it set up something from there to what I'm going to go to in just a moment. So I had allergies. I had them terribly. So much so that I had to get shots on the weekly. Had to have different tests run. I know this is a little TMI for you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I would sneeze, and before I could put my hand over it, it would hit the ground. It was awful. I was very sick, very, very sick as a little boy, very sick. I don't remember the specifics. My mom probably would tell it better than I do, but I do know this, that we was in a service, and in that service, I knew that I was tired of being sick, and I needed and knew that Jesus could heal me. And I tugged on my mom and said, I want to go up front. I want to get prayed for because I want to be healed. And I went up with faith. And from that day on, I've never had allergies again. Never took a shot again. That's an altar of my remembrance. And I look back on that. And you say, that's not a big deal. It was a big deal to me. It was a big deal when I was 8 years old or 9 or however old I was at that point in time in my life. It was a big deal. And it proved to me that even at a young age, God saw me. And the things that were important to me was important to Him. Okay? Got another one. So this stone, what does it represent to me? It represents my marriage. It was a time in my marriage, I'm just going to bear with you some things that you'd be like, oh, I don't want to hear all that, but you're going to hear it anyway. So here we go. My wife and I were not in a good place at all. And when I mean at all, we was like, she didn't like me and I didn't like her. I mean, we all have marital, disagreements, we'll call them, huh? We have disagreements. I don't agree with you. This was more than just a disagreement. This was, I don't like you. I don't want to be around you. She felt the exact same way. So much so that we had gotten to the place we was getting a divorce. So much so that we was signed the divorce papers. So much so we was a week from getting a divorce. Well, we didn't get a divorce, obviously, right? It's an altar of remembrance that I can look back on. Come on. Let's just be real. I'd rather be real than not. So you're going to have some times in your life. You do. You will. If God did it for me there, He'll do it, right? Huh? There's times my wife don't like me. Hey, listen. This week was one of them, huh? You ever get a man cold? Huh? Yeah, you have, men. You have. Don't even try it. Huh? You feel like you got the plague. You got a sniffle, and your wife's trying to, help you out there. But listen, there's going to be times. There's going to be times that I'm not real happy with her. Right? It's marriage. Happens. I'm not going to go into all that. But what I can do is no matter what comes our way, can look back here. How about another one? What's my next one? Let me see what I got. Oh, yeah. This one. Remember that first altar? That one played a pretty big role in this one. 6 months into, we have 7 children. Of our 7 children, we have 6 boys. We have 1 girl. Whew. Huh? Okay. So to say that my wife and I would have been like elated that me for sure, finally get a girl, like what? Yes. 6 months into that, and I'm not going to go into everything, but I'll just go quickly through it. 6 months into that, we get the diagnosis that our daughter has trisomy. She has 1% chance of life, cleft palate, club feet. The epitome of the word, this is what they tell us, there is no quality of life she will, if she even makes it to birth, the best case scenario, she'll be a vegetable. The best case scenario, she'll never call you mom, dad. She'll never know you. She'll never she will be. Just go get an abortion. That was what they told us. That was our terminate the birth. Now listen. Can I show something to you? I was going to church, loved Jesus, knew God could do something for me here. Wasn't serving God here. Yet, look what He did. Was not serving God here. Didn't deserve it. Did you hear me? I didn't deserve this. And we watched week after week after week God perform miracles upon miracles. You saw my daughter up here running around going crazy. She's just A-okay. Absolutely. But when I was here, when my wife and I was here, and let me tell you something, we called out to God in this moment. Let me tell you, this was a life-changing right here. God will get our attention, people. That's a whole different sermon right there. He will get your attention one way or another. He got our attention right here. But right here, what I had to stand on and had to look back to was right here. And God, if you did it for me there, you'll do it for me here. If your word was true here, it's true there. If you can heal me, you can heal her. And doesn't matter what the disease may be or what the doctors may say. I got one more. There's no sense in the size of the bricks either, or the stones here. So you're like, well, that last one's not very big. Yeah. All right. This one. Serving God, not serving God. Not serving God changes my life. We serve God. This one. How many of you know that God is a restorer? Okay. I was a pastor at one point. I've been a youth pastor at one point. Wasn't there in the second stone. I wasn't. Third stone, I wasn't. This is the God of restoring. And he looks at us and he says, you know what? I've seen you there. And no matter what the devil has done in between here and here, I can restore you. And I can restore you to right standing. Come on. I didn't deserve it. We don't deserve it. He's a restorer. And this is my stone of remembrance. And every time I start to get down on myself a little bit, I remember this right here. And I'm like, you restored me. And I didn't deserve it. You restored me. You restored a ministry in me. You restored something that I had just buried away and said, it's done. That part of my life, that part of my life is over. My mom would call me at times. God love her. I did everything in my power to get off the phone with this woman because I did not want to hear what she had to say. Because I knew, even though she loves me and I love my mom more than anything, I love her. But I didn't want to hear about going to church. And you know what you should be doing. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. I just avoided it like the plague. I didn't want to hear it. And I would get off the phone. Oh, yeah, Mom, I know. I got to go. Click. He is a restorer. It's a stone that I can build upon. And not just for me, but for others. To say, well, maybe my time's passed. No, it hasn't. And they can look at this and they can go, man, if he did it for Jason, whew, if you knew Jason, you know, how many years ago, if you knew him. Psalm 77:11. Yet I could never forget all your miracles, my God, as I remember all your wonders of old. Maybe you're sitting here today, and these things that I've talked about, now you can start to think about your altars of remembrance. Because maybe you're in a spot in your life and some things that are going on in your life right now, and you're like, I don't feel God. I don't hear Him. I'm not seeing it. That's what these are for. That's what these are for. These are so we can see it and we can remember it. And if God did it for me, He'll do it for you. Psalms 23:3. That's where He restores and revives my life. He opens before me the right path and leads me along in His footsteps. My footsteps are bad. His footsteps are perfect, of righteousness, so that I can bring honor to His name. So you may say to yourself, Jason, why do I have to go through the things that I can't tell you that? I can't tell you that. My daughter, she had to have a surgery just not too long ago. She's still going to have a few more surgeries down the road here. Some would say, well, Jason, why didn't God just listen, I am not in a position to question what God can and cannot do. All I know is I seen Him miraculously take 2 valves and make 4 valves. I seen Him straighten her spine to a point where they said she'll never walk. Never walk. Was she walking this morning? Yeah, go chase her. Okay. If you know Everly, she is shy, but once you get to know her, she never shuts her mouth, ever. She's just 90-0. Very smart, very smart, very headstrong. Yeah, Lord help us. Yeah, her mom. Now, does she still have some things to face? Absolutely. Do I know why? Don't know, but I do know this. And so when I walk through with her, when her mother and I walk through with her through the things that she is going to face, guess where we will stand? Right here. Right here. When I get discouraged, what do I look at? I look at these. When the waves are crashing in, what do I look at? I look at these. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of the storm, it's too hard. You can't see. You can't see to steer. You can't see what's clearly. You don't know which way you're going. All you can do is look back on the altars of remembrance and go, you did it here, God. If you did it here, you'll do it again. You will do it. You are faithful. You are faithful. So I don't know about you. Do you need healing? Do you need your marriage restored? Do you need a miracle? Or do you need a restoration of what God can do in your life? Those are just 4 stones that I want to share with you. I got a lot more, but those 4 I wanted to share with you. Would you stand to your feet with me? I know we're